All right. So welcome Ram and welcome Janine. It's really my pleasure to invite you to this conversation, and thank you so much for taking out time for the conversation that is so much relevant and required, and especially at least in the lockdown time. So thank you so much. I would. It'll be nice for our participants to know a little bit about you. So let me just introduce you a bit. So Ram is a Marshall Goldsmith certified coach, and Janine is co-founder of Empower World, based in Qatar. She's based in Australia, but the organization is based in Qatar, and she works across the globe to support organizations with coaching services. And Ram works out of India and global to support organizations with coaching services. So welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for taking out this time once again. And our topic today is, as you know, is how to drive outcomes. I think the lockdown and the pandemic has brought a very, very severe situation for all of us. And it actually changed the paradigm of a lot of stuff at workplace overnight. And the struggle that everybody is facing is how do you drive teams? While there is another issue of economy standing behind all of us, that is also adding to the desperation of everything. But how do you really, because in India we see that still there are a lot of organizations who work out of office. There is a lot of culture of being in the office, seeing each other. Work gets done informally. It's like just walking to the cubicle and just talking and getting, it's very informal way of working. So in that scenario, I felt that this topic is really, really relevant. And I also see my clients and people around me struggling about how do you drive results? How do you make sure the teams are doing what they're doing? People are motivated, and there are families at home. So, people are, it's also a struggle to manage and create a balance. So some of the questions that are there on top of my mind, and some of the questions that our participants have sent, would like to ask both of you. And what I can do is, what I want to request the participants is, first of all, thank you and welcome. What I would request you is, we'll go through a questionnaire with Ram and Janine, and those are supposed to cover most of the crux of the conversation. However, in case you feel the question that you asked was not answered during the conversation, in the last 15 minutes, please feel free to put it in the chat window. Also, give us reactions, because there is a reaction button in Zoom, which tells us whether you're liking it or you're not liking it. Sorry. And keep engaging on the chat window as to whatever is coming your way. So let's start the conversation. I'm actually managing the admit window also, with some people still joining. So pardon me if you see me not having a eye contact with you. Great. So I think my first question, maybe I can start with Janine, is Janine, what are the challenges you're seeing your clients facing as soon as the world goes virtual? And then I would like to know Ram's view once you share your views about that.
Yeah, so some of the challenges that my clients are facing in this new world, and my clients consist of both organizations and individuals. And so if I look at the organizational perspective, it is, I guess it's similar to what some of these questions that are coming up. How do we stay in touch? How do we be effective? How do we ensure that we're motivated? How do we make sure that people are doing the right thing? How do we make sure that people are supported and able to do the role? There's also the challenge of, I guess, sometimes bandwidth, being able to be online. There's also the challenges of the technology as well. So ensuring that they have got an appropriate platform or technology like Zoom that they can use to stay in touch. Whether people have got the right equipment that they can use at home. So I know some organizations, their employees don't have the devices that are required to work from home. So there's a matter of that expenditure of supplying people with the right equipment so that, again, people can stay in touch. So there are, I guess, a number of online challenges
Mm-hmm.
that's going on with my clients. And in terms of those clients that perhaps are in the more of the manufacturing side of things, I don't really work with those organizations. So I don't know I don't know what kind of challenges they might be facing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think some of them are able to still get on with what they do because they're seen as essential services.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then with my individual clients that I'm working with, again, it's the isolation, it's the anxiousness, it's the worry about the future. Some have lost their jobs, so there's a lot of anxiety out there, a lot of stress,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some good stories out there as well. There's some organizations that have really seen this as an opportunity and have acted really swiftly and quickly
Mm-hmm.
to equip their people with the equipment and the software, and made software changes to, for example, speaking to some people in the banks, they've been able to do amazing things from home. So yes, there's a real mix of challenges, but also opportunities and changes which will potentially change the way that they will work forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know if that's answering your question. I feel like I've taken a bit of space now. So
Not at all, not at all. So that's interesting. So what I'm hearing is, apart from the logistical issues, there are motivational issues, and there are issues around isolation. There are issues around how to manage, things around the thing, and there are also examples where companies were prepared and they've been able to manage solution. This is what I'm hearing from you. Is this something I missed in the conversation yet?
but yeah, no, summarized very well.
Thank you. So, Ram, you work with a lot of IT organizations, I know. What is that you see? What are their business challenges, in the sense, what is really stopping business to continue in this time?
So, for IT companies, pure play IT companies, there has not been a challenge, very honestly. So, I work with Publicis Sapient, and one day they were working, mixed environments, virtual and physical, and the next day they had to go virtual, and it was absolutely seamless, as they say. In fact, last week they had a new batch of people coming in, some 150 people across two geographies,
Mhm.
Bangalore and Gurgaon, and they did an entire 4-day onboarding virtually.
So it
So
seems they were ready.
absolutely ready. And anecdotally, I think technology companies are not challenged for, I would say, what all Janine brought in terms of technological challenges, bandwidth availability. I think their challenge has been saying, how are my clients, facing the crisis, and what does it do for me in terms of my own work or my sales pipeline and revenue and forecasting. So
Mhm.
I think their challenges are more about the worry of what the upcoming year looks like. What do I do with my people? How many people can I afford to keep? So on and so forth. Uh, the other side of it, the non-technology clients, again, very interesting challenges. So if you're a financial services player, then you are dealing with data security and how do I expose data to people who are working remotely. So a lot of time you expected people to come in and work in a secure environment. And this is true even in organizations like Google, where they have a lot of contractor workforce who would come into the office and then deal with data. But now, if you have the contracting workforce going outside, how do you then expose the data to them with the privacy, with the security challenges? So that's another aspect of working remotely out there. Um, Finally, I think it is boiling down to how many people have been able to quickly get past their fear, uncertainty, and doubt and move to a place where they're accepting the new normal. So it's almost that's the inner game or the mental game that's happening where you're saying, okay, this has happened and we don't know how it's going to end or how it's going to roll out. How do I prepare myself? And so I'm hearing quite a few stories in terms of people bringing in opportunities, and the opportunities could be internal in terms of putting processes in place, putting together training programs for their people. So,
Mhm.
how do I therefore use this time in preparing myself for a situation like this, which could worsen or in the future come back?
Hmm. Hmm. So I hear you, and it seems that the organizations, so there are one set of organizations which were prepared, IT-driven companies, because they're used to, that's their way of working, and there are organizations who are not worried for them, but they're worried more about their clients as to how clients are dealing with it. And I'm also hearing that organizations, some of the organizations are doing good things in this difficult time, to say, hey, let's train, let's develop, and let's do things which are more productive, let's put the process in place. I'm actually wondering, and I had a conversation with a friend today morning, and I was wondering about the organizations which are more manufacturing driven, which are driven by workers, where the livelihood is challenged, survival is challenged. Do you have example of those organizations as to how are they dealing with this change? Because for them it's almost like, it's almost like a showstopper.
Yeah. So I have a client who's in the manufacturing segment. Now, part of what has happened is supply chains have been affected because of the lockdown. So this particular client gets supplies from China, and therefore they are seeing that there is going to be a delay in that. On the other side, they are saying that if I am in a large manufacturing setup, most of my orders are done either annually or half yearly. So I don't need to worry about my current contracts. What I worry about is my contract in the later half the year or the following financial year, because definitely we are going to see demand contract. So that is just in terms of the business cycle itself and supply chain. As far as people themselves go, at least in India, I have seen a lot of people coming and saying, okay, we are going to either do a furlough where we say you're going to work for 15 days and you're going to take a pay cut. And therefore, they are kind of sharing the burden of surviving through this, because everybody seems to be feeling that there will be an end where demand will pick up.
Mhm.
And so if I'm one of the few standing, then I'd be able to be in a good place to kind of use the demand or use the capacity that I have where my competitors have not survived.
Hmm. Hmm. So it seems like a mental and business pause that people are exercising, saying, hey, this will pass on. It's just like a storm that will pass on, is what I'm hearing. Jadine, have you experienced this kind of a situation, especially with manufacturing setups, maybe in Australia or Qatar, as to what is happening there?
Yeah, I haven't actually. My clients are in the um, education, professional services industry, so I don't have any manufacturing clients as such. But what I'm getting a sense of is exactly what Ram has shared
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, and I must admit I don't listen to the news much either.
Good.
um, so I'm picking up bits and pieces.
Hmm. Okay.
I guess well, I have to say, this is the busiest I've probably ever been. And
Hmm.
I've been very busy in my, busy is an interesting word. I'm running a business. I've
Mm-hmm.
been very busy with that business, developing that business over the last 8 to 10 years. And this would have to be one of the busiest times I've ever experienced in my life. And so I haven't really had the time to listen to the news. But
Hmm.
what I am picking up is that people are willing to make those sacrifices. And certainly the Australian government, I mean, I'm based in Australia, and certainly the Australian government is aiming to prop the economy up with with payment um, with payments to those that have lost their jobs and so forth. So there is this, I guess, let's put things on hold, or let's support things until this is over so that we can start to pay back.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's an interesting time of both pausing or losing jobs or switching focus. So I'm hearing for example, a number of gin distilleries that have turned their business around from gin to making hand sanitizers. So,
Okay.
so there are these organizations that are, they're seeing, okay, what is possible?
Hmm.
What can we do in this new environment? And they're quickly turning their service around. So it's a real mix. And I was part of a webinar last week, and it's called something like Moonshine, and it's basically it's out of the box thinking. This organization specializes in out of the box thinking, and they were just sharing how, if we can bring that approach to everything that we do, if
Hmm.
we can dream wild and dream big about a different, and be prepared for change and make those steps towards change, then we're going to be able to, we're going to be able to get through this. And of course, I know that that's not going to be true across the board, but maybe it's going to be true for a lot, hopefully.
Hmm.
If we can adopt this kind of, okay, that's not going to work, that old way is not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
What can we do differently? What can we do that we haven't thought of yet that actually is really possible? So
Mm. So again, I'm hearing interesting things. One is the education sector is right now busy educating, developing themselves, and hence there is a business. And
yeah,
the organizations who are feeling out of business right now are innovating. So gin to sanitizer is a kind of example I'm hearing. And the IT organizations which were well prepared. And some of the organizations are taking it like a challenge that, okay, it's just been a month, we'll roll it and see what happens, and then go with it. So somewhere in all the cases, the resilience is playing a big role, right? The way people are taking it, the people are taking actions or not taking action, pausing, even pausing is resilience, right? Great. Do you see in your clients or in your clients or the employees of your clients anxiety playing any role? Do you see people being anxious?
yeah. Do you want to answer that, Ram?
Yeah, I guess the short answer is yes. There is a lot out there. And this again points to the efforts from the leadership team on how do you, and I think this was said very beautifully, right? Over communicate. At this time, it's a very kind of a tightrope which is being walked where there is way too many conversations which could have happened informally.
Mm.
I could have just bumped into you in the corridor and could have had a 2-minute conversation, but it's right now becoming a scheduled 30-minute call. So
Mm.
that is bringing down productivity and effectiveness and efficiencies. But at the same time, leaders have to uh, get into the job of making sure people are not anxious about their futures. So communication is becoming double-edged in
Mm.
that instance out there.
Mm.
The one thing which people have been saying, and this was again a client of mine earlier last week. He said, Ram, this is actually a great opportunity for me because normally I would just get into boom, boom, boom work and I would just ask about the status. But here I'm kind of slowing back and saying, how are things with you? How are people at home? How are you managing the groceries and supplies? And we spend 5, 7 minutes. And he said that actually my relationship with my teams have gotten better.
Mm.
So I think communication is key. Anxiety is there.
Yeah.
And anxiety is not only about the future, it's about the present. It's about whether I'll have my job, not have my job, whether I'll have work or not have work, whether I will be relevant or not relevant. So many questions going in people's mind. Jenny, what did you notice about anxiety?
Yes, it definitely has. Well, it's interesting. It definitely has risen, obviously.
Hmm.
People worried about the future. And certainly, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, Jaya, my business is based in Qatar, which is in the Middle East, which is very transient. And so, there is a lot of anxiousness there with families living in different countries, separated across different countries. Will I have a job? Won't I have a job? Um, so the stress levels are high, and coming into summer as well over there. Um, that's the time when many people take off and have their annual vacation, or and again, if they're separated from their family, that's the time that they will often reunite. So there's a lot of anxiousness going on. And I'm hearing some of the organizations, and some of the organizations have reached out to myself and Marie, my business partner, for support. So they have been coming to us for coaching support to, again, create that resilience that you were talking about, Jaya, to be able to provide people with the opportunity to share what's going on and look at strategies to be able to cope with the stress that is occurring. So that's been wonderful in terms of being able to support a number of organizations with some workshops and also one-to-one coaching. And we trust that that's helping and supporting people. But I would say my general feel is that the stress levels are incredibly high. But then in other areas, I think as people start to slow down, as Ram was saying, as people start to slow down, take stock, and as it's been going on, I think this is also a little bit of calmness coming through as well. I certainly feel that for myself. I know when it first took off, my thoughts, I mean, I'm married, my husband doesn't work, I'm the breadwinner with my own business. So I was sort of thinking, oh my goodness, what does this mean for us? Will I be getting the work from my clients who are potentially also going to be closing down or cutting spending, et cetera, but actually it's been quite the opposite. So it's surprising what is unfolding. So this situation is creating new opportunities. And so I think, again, for those organizations or individuals who look at this with a different perspective and identify a different way forward, can come through this. It's about, in fact, I was working in New Zealand today, online, working with Maori women and Pacifica women. And they were sharing with me that as a consequence of the pandemic, that they have really, trying to think of the word, but they have really stepped up and been able to step into some of their more traditional practices and really create an economy, or pick up an economy for themselves. So they were sharing how proud they were of their people, of how they've been able to utilize this situation to be able to step into some old practices that support their networks. So it was wonderful to hear their resilient response to what's happening.
Interesting.
Jay, I'm going to build on something, right? When Janine was talking, struck me that one of my clients is actually conducting every day in the morning 10-minute meditation sessions for everybody who's interested in his company. Now, so while we look at logical ways of managing stress and anxiety, there is also the things beyond the logical that are being brought into play here. So I see a lot of people leaning towards the spiritual and looking for ways and means in which you can support this. And once again, technology has allowed us to reach across the globe to help support these initiatives.
Interesting. So again, the conversation is going back, how are we managing our emotions? Because externally there is hardly anything to be, is hardly anything in control. So I'm going to take some of the questions which has come through the registration drum, and these are little away from the survival and what we're talking about. So let me just read them. So first question is, how do you balance between business continuity and payment of wages in today's scenario? Both impacts employment, one in short term and one in the long term. What would be your response to that?
So I put up a very, very short post on LinkedIn sometime back on this. I said, you need to worry about client relationships, cash conservation, and compassion, right? Not necessarily in that order, but you can say all of them are equally important. So compassion when it comes to what am I doing with my people? right? You obviously do not want to get into saying, here is the time when I need to do layoffs and I need to, but at the same time, you need to worry about conserving your cash.
Mm.
You need that, you need that security in your bank. And the third part of it is obviously your clients. If they are if they are long-term clients and they are products that you are unique in the market with, then you don't need to worry. But if you're in the services business, clients would look at it and say, is this a discretionary spend? Can I move it off? So how do you balance it? I think one statement which I read, which really, really resonated, was right now the time to be managing this is manage to your cash, manage to your bottom line, and
Mm.
be very, very honest with all your people and employees. So over communicate, talk to them about the pressures out there, but don't manage to a revenue target, don't manage to a marketing target, manage to a bottom line or a cash target.
So
And
so basically,
compassion is key.
yeah, so basically bring your expectations at the survival level. And even when you were talking about this, I again read this question. I'm hearing a bit of anxiety in this question also, because it doesn't seems to be like today's issue, but yeah, how do we manage employment, which are long-term issues, even short-term also, but then actually nobody has the answers. So how do you sail through this time is what I'm hearing in this question as an underline. Great. So the next question that I read here is virtual sales. For some, a lot of organizations, it has become how to sell it online, right? So virtual sales is a new era to look at right now. How can we make it more impactful in current virtual environment? How are you selling online?
So again, a couple of different approaches, right? Now, if you are in the services business, right, then a lot of your selling happened by your reputation and your referrals. And anybody who's, and I'm sure Janine would be able to talk about this, right? Further, it is our reputation as what we bring to our clients, which is selling, and those were all really virtual to sales. So it could be a recommendation on LinkedIn, or it could be a referral which went in there. If I were to look at an organizational level also, the traditional model of sales, as we know of it today, evolved in door-to-door selling, where salesmen would go and meet people, knock on their doors, demonstrate a product and sell. And that's how it would be. And those
Mm.
products could be, hey, here is a nice way, here is a motor, here is a cleaner, here is a vacuum cleaner, or so on and so forth. So it was the demonstration.
Mm.
Now, the demonstration can be virtual. Today, if I were to go talk about a product, and which is an online product or a service, I have the ability to demonstrate it virtually. And
Mm.
that could be using videos, it could be infographics. And rather than trying to sell, I can have this being consumed by my clients through word of mouth, through referrals from a great experience that an existing client of mine has. Right? So to me, the impactful word in this question is very, very important. So it may not take the same form and shape,
Mm.
but it can be far, far more impactful if you were to bring the product experience in a virtual space.
Interesting. Interesting. Janine, what's your experience on this?
Sorry, I lost Wi-Fi a little bit there. So was
No
that a
problem.
question for me?
Yeah, so Ram was just responding on how are you making the sales more now, because it is a virtual challenge, everything is virtual. He was responding to how you can sell it online. What is your experience in this term about selling virtually?
Yeah. So, and I'm not a sales expert, but what I will say is that, I mean, we have been using, so Marie and I in Empower World, we've been using virtual promotion for a long time,
Mhm.
and we do that through social media. So as Ram says, LinkedIn is a wonderful way for, certainly for us to have been able to have found clients, and actually we've been able to create a really successful business without actually going out there and business developing, but we do have a digital presence. So in LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram.
Mhm.
So, and what we do in our business is provide a mix of posts, and videos. And the experts say videos is a great way to bring people in. And as Ram said, we can do demonstration of a product. In our coaching world, we can do a coaching demonstration to show our expertise. We can run webinars, and I'm sure like this. And I'm sure many people have seen that there's been so many incredible offers of free webinars at the moment. A lot of generous people, and some of them are really, I believe, they're doing it out of the, you know, the goodness of their heart. And then there'll be some that'll be doing it like yourself, Jaya. That's what I believe. You know, wanting to give back. And then there'll be others that might be doing it very hard sale, trying to sell on the webinar. But Jaya, I know that you're not doing that. You're providing a service to support those who are experiencing challenge or potentially wanting to look at, you know, how can I turn this into a wonderful opportunity? So yes, the digital platform, the virtual platform has worked. I can speak from our experience. It's worked well. We've probably, at a guess, I think 50% of the people that come through have seen our digital presence, while the other 50% would be through referrals. So I think again, there's a great opportunity for those that haven't used the virtual world yet for sales, because from our own experience, I know it's been very successful. And I think the other key thing is to give value instead of selling something, trying to get people to buy something. The key is to provide value, to provide really top quality information, and just trust that some people won't buy you and some people will. So there's that law of, and I can never say it, starts with R, if anyone can help me.
Repo? You want to say repo?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity, right.
So there's that beautiful law. And that's certainly something that Marie and I believe in. I believe we're very generous in what we send out, and trust that it will come in some shape, some form. So
yeah. Interesting. So what I commonly heard as a pattern in both of you is, number one, relationships. Go back to your relationships, have conversations, and connect with them. And that's when the referral comes in, right? When it comes with the trust and the relationship. Second, I heard is leverage digital, either in form of demonstration or in form of blogs or value or just advertising or whatever. Leverage digital more carefully. And I also heard give value without any condition. Support people. I mean, and this is a time when we see flooded, messages from therapists, counselors, coaches, anybody whoever can give anything. People are generously offering. So I think this is another way of connecting with people to say, hey, I'm interested to add value to you. Very interesting. Ram, you want to say something?
So I think, I want to build on what Janine was saying, right? At the end of the day, if you are not interested in selling, and if you step back and say, I'm going to add value, I'm going to create impact, there's a lot of way in which you can build a very, very long-term base of clients who will continue to work with you, who would love to work with you. And so I think that's, once again, what's happening within you in terms of how you look at this relationship between you and your client, which I think is always worth looking into. So that's one point. The other thing is that it's quite interesting how this virtual world, everybody being virtual, has kind of changed buyer behaviors. So last week, one of my clients was saying that people are buying apartments virtually. Now, buying apartments is one of those very, very involved processes where people have to go to the location, see the place, see the views. And here was an example of how it was being done completely virtually. And what was enabling it was 3D walkthroughs. You render an apartment and 3D walkthroughs of the apartment, guided by technologies like Zoom, where the salesperson is able to walk through with the client and say, hey, here is what is going to happen. Here is how the room is going to look. So not fancy stuff like virtual reality, but even simple things. But again, taking the effort to help the client connect, walking through with them, helping them with their questions. It was a longer sale process. It was more awkward than a face-to-face on-site, but still worked wonderfully well.
Very interesting. I mean, this is a unique example. I never thought people are buying apartment at this time, but if they are, and this is the way the selling is happening, then definitely any product or any service can be sold. And in my understanding, right now, when we are in crisis situation, we believe in people we already know. We don't go to new people, right? It's hard because you need to invest in the relationship. You need to stay with the relationship, and it's easy to go back to people that we have worked. And we all know, right? Sales doesn't happen. People don't buy products, people buy people. So it's very important that we go back to people we have worked with, provide value to create new relationships, and be unconditional in this environment. I think somewhere these crises are pushing all of us to change our mindsets, change our skills, disrupt what we know, and just learn new skills. I mean, making videos, being comfortable on demonstration, doing on Zoom or things like that are really, really pushing everybody to say, learn something new, do something new, or try a new way of either selling or conducting your business. That's what I'm largely hearing. So interesting. Now, I think my next question. Yes, Janine, yes.
Yeah, I'll just come in here. And I think, as you say, learning new skills, this is a great time to do that. And so, for example, you doing what you're doing is potentially, I mean, this could be something that you're already highly skilled at anyway. But if it was someone that wasn't doing much of this is a great way to learn those skills of facilitation to be able to move into a new area. So I think that's something to take into account. And there was something else that has just gone.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. Referrals. I think this is also a good time to seek out those testimonies, where you've had good client relationships, where you've provided good service, and perhaps you haven't got a testimony from those relationships. And this would be a good time to perhaps gather those and put that on your LinkedIn account or your website or whatever it may be, because I think testimonials really count for so much. And again, we get people referred to us a lot because of someone's worked with us and someone trusts that testimony, someone trusts that referral, and will want to sign up for our programs or for our coaching services. So that is something really to follow up if you haven't already.
Interesting. Ram, you were saying something?
So no, Ida was also commenting on the chat saying people buy people. It's very interesting because a couple of organizations that I know, when they are looking at their numbers, they are looking at what's my recurring revenue and what's my new sales forecasted for the year. And the recurring revenue is your existing relationships. And the way you look at it is, what relationship do I already have and what can I expect from that? And what's the new one which is coming in? And once again, the businesses that have lost or have gone away, it's quite interesting to see how it has happened. Where the relationship was iffy or troubled, it has just snapped off like that. It has been one call and it's like, hey, we have problems, we are shutting it down. Versus everybody is having problems. Let's see how we can work together, continue to work together. So even when businesses have collapsed, but the way they are talking about it is based on the relationship.
Very interesting. And you know what, when both of you were speaking, a beautiful metaphor came in my mind that right now when we are locked in our house, we are making maximum use of our kitchen, right? Those dishes that we have never made, we are making now, clicking photo and putting it on Facebook. The difficult dishes or the dishes that you will always think and buy, jalebi and all those. Janine, there are a lot of complicated desserts that we make it in India, which we never make it. We always buy. So it is just reminding me, how do you optimize what you have? You optimize what's there in the kitchen already, because it's very easy to just keep looking for new and not utilize what you have. And I like to call this phenomena as use your hard disk, because there's so much saved in our hard disk which we ignore and we keep looking for things outside. But how do you go back and just go back and see what all is there? You're using all your clothes that you have, you're not buying new clothes, you're using all your, it's the same applies to business. Just optimize what you have. Go back, look into your kitchen, look into your hard drive, and what do you say, recycle or leverage what you already, you might find gold there. You might find a lot of good relationships, you might find a lot of good deals that has worked for you in the past. So that's what is just coming up. I love working with metaphors, you guys know that. So that's what came up for me. All right.
Joy, can I just add to that? Sorry. As you share that, um, so Marie and I, we run coach training. We were running face-to-face coach training in Qatar, and in the summer, in the Middle East, everyone clears out. And I might have frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
breaking, but that's fine. Yeah.
Great. So we don't run programs for about 3 months of the year. So June, July, August. And we just completed a coach training this weekend. So I've been in New Zealand and Qatar this weekend running coach training. The coach training in Qatar, it started off face to face, but then there was the lockdown. So we had to run consecutive weekends online, and everything's locked down in Qatar. So all of a sudden we thought, why don't we run the coach training over the summer, because everyone's going to be there online. It's worked well. So we're looking through our wardrobe. We've found, what we wear well already, and we're bringing it out for the summer. So again, it's supporting, as I said earlier in the call, we were wondering, what's going to happen to the business, but we've already got people saying we're interested. So yeah, it's when we look at that other perspective, when we look at different ways, when we decide to reuse and upgrade what we've got,
Yeah.
it can create great outcomes.
Interesting.
Yeah, one more thing that struck me.
Yeah.
Just the quality of relationship and people buying people.
Mm.
We're not doing social distancing right now. We're possibly doing physical distancing, and the quality of your relationships have actually improved. So many people have called out and said, hey, I'm just reaching out to people whom I haven't spoken in a long time. Because I have the time, and I also feel it's important to nurture those relationships, which I hadn't taken the trouble to nurture when I was just running at such a fast pace. Right? So some of those things are also clicking or dropping into place as well. So not social distancing, but physical distancing.
Physical distancing. Yeah, more mindfulness setting in all of us. We're becoming more sane with this lockdown. So that's what I'm hearing. Great. Last two questions from my side, and then I want to open it up to everybody to see what they want to ask. The question is, in the days of crisis, how we can perform in more effective way working from home? And I think the connected question is, how do I balance? My child is showing up on the camera, somebody is waiting for me to cook dinner, or things going on. How do I concentrate and be more effective?
Yeah, that's a great question, and not one that I can answer from experience, although maybe I can. I don't have children, but I do have two cats, and one in particular is very loud, and he really wants to be with his mum, and will be scratching at the door and meowing very loudly. So he is quite well known with participants on the coach training. But while we were running our coach training in Qatar, there were a number of mums who were at home and clearly with the family and with young children, and potentially had asked their husbands to look after the kids, but the kids kept coming in. And I think for us, it was about just being relaxed with it, knowing that, we are in interesting, challenging times, and to just really set some ways of working, set some ground rules about what we ideally want, but knowing if those ground rules get broken, which they did, it's okay, and just to breathe and just go with it and say hi to the child in the background, which happened quite a lot. Um, so I did see that quite a bit over the weekend with the kids coming in, and I'm sure that the participants, it would have stressed them a bit too, but they managed themselves really well, and they were able to bring their whole self as much as they could in that training. But it is challenging, and I don't know what the answer is, not having a child myself. But I think it is potentially having those ways of working set, being clear, being transparent about what you're doing. So that could be one way of managing that type of situation.
Interesting. So I think I heard empathy, that let's see that everybody's in the same situation. So empathize and not judge each other. And two is set some rules or way of working which everybody can manage, and not really feel offended or conscious rather on the camera saying, hey, my child is showing up, what do I do? It's okay. Ram, what would you like to say?
So the question itself is very interesting, right? It talks about performing in a more effective way. Right? So I think it kind of is a loaded pair of dice, right? So I think I love what Janine said, right? Relax. All of us are going through this, and it's the first time, that, I think in living memory that something like this has happened. So a lot more empathy, a lot more compassion, a lot more kindness towards yourself. Right? You have this bar of, I need to be this way, my background has to be so perfect. It's not going to happen. And so give yourself some slack there, and vice versa to the person in front of you. And this again manifests in so many different ways. I go to sleep promising that tomorrow I will not Netflix. And lo and behold, end of the day, I am like, oh my God, I wish I had used my time better. But we are struggling and we are looking for some outlets. So, your schedule might get thrown away, but make the effort again. Make the effort tomorrow. Come back. Work with compassion, work with a lot of patience and kindness with yourself and others.
Interesting.
I see Janine smiling out there.
So Ram, are there any tools, hacks you would like to offer to all of us as to what has been effective in today's working?
So I think having said all of that in terms of compassion and in terms of patience, right? Still, I think there is a lot to be gained in terms of time management and working in blocks of time. So if you were to look at the Pomodoro technique, which looks at a block of 25 minutes time and then taking a break in 25 minutes, I think that will do a lot in terms of your ability to work without procrastination. Second is those 5-minute breaks would also help you go stretch, get a drink, be physically also active rather than being desk bound for an entire day. So definitely would recommend working off a list of prioritized actions for the day. So if you're not a person who is very systematic, now is the time to put in together simple to-do lists. Also would recommend people looking at things like Pomodoro technique and timers, where they can work in shorter bursts towards a specific objective. So they get past the procrastination and the time wasting that happens.
Interesting. I'm just recalled about the time when I started working from home a couple of years back. And I think I used to deal with the guilt that my manager should not think that I'm wasting time. So then I'll sit in front of laptop, even if I'm not productive, but I'm sitting there. And I think this happens with a lot of us, that we think that we deal with the guilt of not wasting time, or trying to prove our bosses that, I'm not wasting time. And at the end of the day, we're not productive, we are stressed out, we overwork, and then it doesn't help anyone. So I think that is something that I'm reflecting on when you say that. And when I have started making to-do lists, my days are more optimized, and I feel that I'm more productive and I'm less stressed, and I can do my yoga and I can do my stuff and I can enjoy while I'm being productive. So I think that's very important when we are working from home.
Yeah. I have
Ginny?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you've both shared. I've worked for myself now for about 10 years or more, and a lot of my work has been from a virtual office. So if I'm not in the training room, I am really on the laptop. If I'm not coaching clients, I'm on the laptop. So it is, I think, having those short breaks, having a prioritized list, and sticking to one task at a time. I mean, I used to do a lot of thinking I could do it all at once, but realizing actually that doesn't work very well. So those short sprints and those regular breaks and getting up and being physical, I think, is really important. And I also think it's very important to have healthy snacks in the fridge, snacks that you like, because it's so easy otherwise to be looking for something to fuel yourself up with.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm guilty of this, and will eat the wrong kind of stuff. So making sure you've got healthy food at your home and plenty of water, I think, is really important.
Interesting. Great. So let me just open the floor and ask everyone if there is any question that you feel is not answered, please feel free to ask Ram or Janine. Or if there is no question, any comments? Seems we have answered everything. Yes, Nitya. Welcome.
I'm so sorry I joined a bit late, so in case my question has been answered, I will take it back. But my question was specifically with regards to, people's situation at this point of time. Um, there's a very interesting conflict that I think most businesses are right now dealing with, which is, do you give priority to people needs, or do you give priority to sustainability of business in the long run? Because both the things are linked to employment at the end of the day. One may be linked to short term, and the other one leading to hampering the long term, right? So, in this dilemma, is there something that you can share that will help us, or any advice that you'd like to give?
Yeah, I think just before you joined, Ram and Janine answered that, but maybe
Sorry.
quickly, I can request both of them to quickly share their nuggets again.
Thanks, Nitya. I think the operational word is the balance out there, right? And I think most organizations that I work with have taken a look at their people first without sacrificing, what their client priorities should be or business priorities should be. And so there is a view that the next 3 months, out of which we have already crossed a month, are going to be difficult. And if we tide past these 3 months, then better things are coming our way. So in a certain sense, it is putting people and not wanting to lose their people during this time, which has somehow proven more important for a lot of my clients.
So what is really coming out is that it may take some time. So I think it's a time for holding on and pausing, because I think nobody knows all the answers right now. So the trick is stay put and take care of your people, be compassionate, and be more mindful about the time you're spending right now.
Yeah. And the other thing, Nitya, is almost all the companies that I work with have taken an approach towards pay cuts rather than layoffs. So right from the senior most leadership, they are talking about numbers of, there's a company that I work with, 300 people, 4 founders, all of them have said next 6 months, I'm not going to take a salary. And then there is an offer for saying how much should everybody take as a pay cut. So that has also been an approach in mid-sized firms that I'm working with, and seems to be the theme for a lot of larger organizations as well, and governmental organizations.
Yeah, interestingly, I've noticed an organization giving away their office space, and they said we don't want to chuck out people, we don't want to cut their salaries, but we will let our infrastructure go away, and we'll work from home because we don't want to lay off people. So some of those good examples are also coming our way, and I'm sure there are not all the solutions for all the businesses available, and everybody's trying to figure out what's best for their environment.
And the one other thing, Nitya, is also that I think this time is also a time when employees or people are looking up at their management and saying, what kind of leaders are you? Right? Are you the guys who are going to prioritize profits over people, where there was an opportunity to do something right for your people? So it's also calling out the style of leadership, the organization cultures and values in a very, very strong fashion. So I guess it's also giving those messages to people in terms of how the leadership is, working. Are they walking the talk? Are they really living the values that are pinned on the board out there?
Yeah, I think it's really, really testing time for any kind of leadership, whether it is country leadership or organization leadership, family leadership. Everybody's been tested at this moment about how they are showing up to their respective responsibilities. Wonderful. Um, any other questions from anyone? All right. So if all the questions are answered, um, I would ask Ram and Janine if they're open to receive emails from anyone if they have post post thoughts or any questions coming up later. And if you're okay, we'll share your email IDs with people who have registered for the webinar. Thank you so much, Ram. And yes, this was indeed very, very enriching conversation. Thank you so much. I've got a lot of questions of my own questions which got answered, and it feels very, very assured to go through this conversation and say, hey, just hold on, this is gonna pass. So yes, Ram.
Right, thank you so much. Lovely words out there to say that this is going to pass, and we are all going to do this physically, meet each other soon.
Absolutely, very soon.
We're one day closer to the end. Thank you, Jaya. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity.
Thank
And
you,
for
Janine. Thank you, Ram. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye bye.
Bye, Ida.